All right, so after the pupil, what is this space we have to go through? Right. Posterior chamber of the anterior segment. And then what's the next structure that we have to go through? Right, so the lens is next. And then after the lens, what is the next part of the eye we go through? Right, so we go all the way through this posterior segment. And it goes all the way back to this. All right, so what is this layer called?
The retina.
The retina. All right, so we're going to pause here and sort of zoom in again, just like the other diagram that we looked at. All right, so we're going to, again, zoom in on a region up here, for example. So even though light's being focused on this part of the eye, so that's one thing I guess you could add if you would like to this diagram, is remember the macula lutea, that spot with high cone concentration, is just above the optic disc. And right in the middle of that is going to be the fovea centralis. All right, so most of the light that's entering your eye, all right, so it's going to be coming from different directions. So it comes in and it's actually trying to get focused on that particular point. But some light still is able to make it to other parts of your retina, which is why they still have photoreceptors, okay? So we're going to use this piece of retina as an example. So do you think this piece is going to have a lot of cones relative to this? No, right? So remember, the distinction that makes this its own part of the retina is that it has a lot of cone cells. So on the other board, I'm going to sort of take this piece of retina and expand it just like the other figure that we saw. Alright, so remember we have the choroid layer on this side, and then what would be on this side of the retina? So what's the anterior to the retina?
Oh, the posterior segment?
Right, the posterior segment. So it's that large space. All right, so what do you remember about the different layers of the retina? So we have a pigmented layer, all right, that's right on the edge of the retina. So I'm not going to talk too much about that. But what is the first layer of cells after the pigmented layer? Right, so that's where you have your photoreceptors. So that's where you have your rods and your cones. All right, so I'm just going to do rectangles and triangles, for example. All right, so just for time's sake, I'm not going to fill this whole thing out. But these are going to be your rod and cone cells. So those have coming off of them to contact the neurons. All right, so we're going to do a dashed line to separate the layers. So these are going to be photoreceptors. And then what comes after the photoreceptors? Right, then we have the bipolar neurons, which are essentially functioning as interneurons right here. All right.
Do we have to know what the cones do versus the rods?
You need to know that the cones specialize in picking up the color of the light that's incoming into the eye, and the rods are more for dim versus bright light in black and white.
Okay.
So, this might be a doubt, but dogs can only see it black and white, right?
Right.
So they must see.
That's actually a good question. I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure. I guess I'd have to look into that. Of course, I would naturally want to say that they probably just have rods, but I don't think it's as easy as that. I think it's a little bit more complicated. They might have cone cells, just very few of them. So yeah, it's a good question. I probably have to look into that, though.
Don't use that as you say this.
What's that?
No, I just said don't use that as a test question.
I was gonna say, what I...
Yep.
No, you can go.
So yeah, we have ganglion cells. Let's see. All right, right, so our third layer are going to be ganglion cells. And then what is this last layer here? So this is still technically part of the ganglion cells, but what is this layer made up of? Right, the axons of the ganglion cells. All right, so based on where we took this cross-section of the retina, which direction are these axons going to go? Are they going to go up or down?
Down.
Right, so they're going to go down, and why is that?
They're trying to get to the optic nerve.
Right, so they're trying to get to the optic nerve, and if you look at where we took the sample from, that's below where we sampled. So they need to go down towards the optic nerve. All right, so we'll just do to optic nerve. All right, what cranial nerve number is that?
2.
It's 2, right.
Oh.
All right, does this make sense for everyone? So we're not going to go through the biomechanics of how the signal is transmitted along here. So just know that the photoreceptors are excited by light, whether the cones are perceiving color or the rods are perceiving the amount of light. But that information is being propagated down these neurons, which ultimately make it to the optic nerve,